Hello, I'm Henry Keane. We are UATV and you are welcome to the News Pulse. Today in the episode, historic hit. Ukraine takes out Russia's B-12 planes and helicopters in occupied Crimea. Putin's dacha in Crimea successfully targeted by Ukrainian drones. The Kremlin's appointee, Crimea's governor Saldo, could be confirmed dead. The United States senators push for Russian frozen assets to be directed in favor of Ukraine. Ukrainian intelligence carried out a precision strike deep inside temporarily occupied territory of Crimea, targeting key Russian military assets and significantly reducing airborne capabilities of the enemy. The facts were widely shared on the web by Ukrainian intelligence social media service. During the operation, 3 enemy Mi-8 helicopters and radar stations were destroyed, dealing a severe blow to the occupiers' military infrastructure. Ukrainian forces also successfully targeted 2 Russian MI-12 Chayka anti-submarine amphibious aircraft, marking the first ever destruction of that type of aircraft in history of warfare. These aircraft are equipped with very expensive systems capable of detecting and combating submarines. Also, 1 Russian Mi-8 multi-purpose helicopter was destroyed right during the raid, significantly weakening the occupiers' capabilities in the region. On Sunday evening, explosions rocked the area around the Foros sanatorium in Crimea, a site linked to Russian intelligence agencies and visited many times by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Foros is a 5-star luxury resort, really. Even during Soviet times, it served as a retreat for military officials and government bureaucrats. Reports indicate that on September 21st, the resort's restaurant was closed for special servicing. Telegram channel Crimean Wind suggested that important guests may have been present there. The channel also emphasized that at times the location was targeted by Ukrainian forces. Putin was not there, but high-level Russian officials could have very well been there. Messages have been appearing online constantly claiming that during the strike, a collaborator, the occupation so-called head of the captured part of the Kherson region, Volodymyr Saldo, might have been at the sanatorium. Last night, Ukrainian assault drones also carried out a massive attack on Russian military and strategic infrastructure in Russia's Krasnodar Krai. Key targets included the city of Yeysk, home to military bases and airfield, as well as Slavyansk na Kubani, where an oil refinery is located. Ukraine has unveiled a major addition to its naval capabilities, the 12-meter-long underwater drone Toloka. Presented at the Brave One Defense Tech Valley 2025 exhibition, this cutting-edge system is part of a new family of unmanned underwater vehicles designed to enhance the country's maritime operations. According to reports, the lineup includes at least 3 models: TLK-200, the smallest one, TLK-400, a middle class, obviously, and the flagship TLK-1000, a large class vehicle. The drones are designed for a range of missions, that is, reconnaissance, mining, signal relay, strike operations, and even cargo delivery. Some modifications feature hybrid propulsion systems and are capable of operating at depth of up to 300 meters. The development of the Toloka type drones underscores Ukraine's growing focus on unmanned maritime technology, offering a flexible and scalable solution to modern naval challenges and expanding the country's strategic options in coastal and open water operations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukraine will soon launch a controlled export mechanism for certain types of national weapons to offset funding shortages in arms production and expand capabilities of supplying the front. This will include naval drones, of course. He also said that within 2 weeks, a concept will be presented. 3 new export platforms, the first of cooperation for the United States, the second for European partners, and the third for other interested countries and global partners.
We have our first proposals for partners regarding the export of Ukrainian weapons, modern ones. This will be a controlled export of our weapons, including naval drones. The security of sea routes is an integral part of overall security, and it depends on many nations. Ukraine is offering all its reliable partners our technologies that have already helped us in the Black Sea. We look forward to robust contracts.
President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky also announced the formation of separate assault troops within the armed forces. They will have now their own structure, command and organization, with UAVs playing a key role in combat operations. According to the head of the Ukrainian state, the new units will now become fully operational within a week to 10 days from now. Their creation aims to strengthen coordination during operations, increase the army's combat capability and formalize the effectiveness of assault units that proved their success during battle throughout 2025. The reform is intended to enhance Ukraine's defense capacity and expand the offensive capabilities of its military. Since May, Russia has captured between 170 and 215 square miles of territory, and that each month, according to Deep State, a group mapping battlefield changes. Well, that only makes the recent successful Ukrainian counterattack in Sumy, which borders Russia, a rare twist on a battlefield dominated by Moscow forces, as New York Times puts it. Russia's Sumy operation has failed. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine confirmed to reporters on Wednesday they suffered significant losses, primarily manpower. Reclaiming small areas of Sumy helps Ukraine counter Moscow's narrative that Russian advances are unstoppable and that Kyiv should settle for a peace deal now, even if it means giving up on territory. Moscow's progress has stalled in Sumy to the point that it is moving troops from the area to other fronts, analysts confirm now, including the eastern region of Donetsk, where it is trying to pocket several key locations. Since the start of the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Pokrovsk direction of Donetsk region, 160 square kilometers of territory have been liberated from Russian occupiers completely. President of Ukraine Zelensky has reported the aggressor has been unable to advance on key strategic directions. Well, that's in a perfect correspondence with the rules of the game, set, by the way, by dictator Putin, when only victoriously good news are considered news in Russia, of course. And so the Russian military command reports non-existent achievements to him. Left with no choice when there are no other achievements, officers, they're just forced to make them up, heavily risking their careers and lives when truth is inevitably floating up anyway, and it usually does. This is why the recent report by the Russian Chief of General Staff shockingly surprised not only military experts around the globe, but first and foremost, Russian propagandists themselves. Well, more to the details in our report.
Chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, is lying to Putin about the state of affairs on the front line, claims Reuters, citing sources. He stated that the aggressor country's armed forces are allegedly advancing on the Pokrovsk direction. In reality, however, in the Pokrovsk area, the armed forces of Ukraine are successfully repelling the enemy's offensive.
On the Pokrovsk direction, Russian invaders conducted 43 attempts to push our defenders from occupied positions in the areas of the settlements of Shahove, Volodymyrivka, Nove Shahove, Lysivka, Svirove, Kotline, Udachne, and toward Chervony Liman, Rodinske, Pokrovsk, Novopidgirne, Molodetske, Muravka, Novopidgorodne, and Filia. The defense forces are holding back the assault and repelled 39 enemy attacks, with fighting ongoing in 7 locations. From a message by General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Telegram.
2 weeks ago, Gerasimov reported that the Russian army allegedly controls half of Kupiansk in Kharkiv region. Currently, a counter-sabotage operation is ongoing in the city, reported the head of the city's military administration, Andriy Besedin. A significant number of Russian soldiers have been eliminated. The Kupiansk direction is one of the priorities for the Russian army. Intense fighting on this front-line section has continued since the fall of 2024. However, the Russian command has failed to achieve success. By reporting mythical victories, Gerasimov wants to extract more resources from Putin, analysts believe.
Essentially, after failing to accomplish the first task of breaking through Ukraine's defenses, the strategic offensive operation, the spring or summer campaign of the Russians, has failed. Now Gerasimov and his generals are replanning the operation, conducting operational tactical calculations for a new offensive operation. They will build plans again, set timelines that I think will not be met either. Gerasimov is asking Putin for additional resources, more personnel, because he lacks the forces for an offensive.
Russia has failed 3 major offensive campaigns in recent times and is preparing 2 more, stated Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Analysts believe this may involve new attempts to capture Kupiansk. The second likely direction is Pokrovsk.
Mirnograd, Konstantinovka.
Mirnograd, Kostiantinivka, Dobropilya, this entire agglomeration. The Russians want to, so to speak, complete their offensive operation, which they started by encircling Pokrovsk from the north and south. The distance between the two Russian salients was about 15 kilometers. There was concern that troops would have to be withdrawn from Pokrovsk because the risk of encirclement was increasing. Currently, the front line on these sections is stabilized.
The armed forces of Ukraine are depriving the Russian command of the opportunity to develop an offensive on the Pokrovsk direction, stated Zelensky.
Since the start of the operation, our warriors have liberated 160 square kilometers, and over 170 square kilometers have been cleared of the occupier. We have significantly replenished our exchange fund, nearly 100 Russian prisoners already, and there will be more. 7 settlements on the direction have been liberated, and 9 more cleared of Russian presence. Any group of occupiers trying to enter here is destroyed by our guys. Russian losses since the start of this counteroffensive operation, just in the Pokrovsk area, just over these weeks, already more than 2,500, of which over 1,300 Russians have been killed.
Since the beginning of 2025, the Russian army has lost 350,500 soldiers, reported Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky. Additionally, over the same period, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed more than 29,000 units of Russian occupiers' automotive equipment, reported by Andriy Dmitrenko, UATV News.
As the United Nations marks its 80th year, global leaders will convene in New York City to, I quote the site, to build consensus and confront complex global challenges. The 80th session of the UN General Assembly opened on Tuesday, 9th of September 2025. However, the first day of the high-level general debate will be Tuesday, 23rd. The gathering in New York is expected to bring together leaders from nearly 150 countries. This General Assembly comes as US-led attempts to move peace talks forward between Russia and Ukraine have simply stalled, with Moscow refusing serious proposals to arrange a meeting between Zelensky and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Despite initially threatening Russia with sanctions if it didn't stop the war, Trump has seemingly dropped any intention of putting pressure on Moscow directly. Well, Zelensky and Trump last met in person in August 18th during a gathering of European officials at the White House 2 days after Trump and Putin met in Alaska. What is known so far is that this time in New York, Zelensky is scheduled to meet with Donald Trump during his visit to the UN General Assembly.
There will be a large number of bilateral meetings. Business, technology, defense, the minerals deal. This will be combined with a large economic meeting and a meeting with the President of the United States of America, Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, speaking with journalists.
During the meeting in Alaska, First Lady Melania Trump gave a letter to Putin that raised the issue of Russia's abduction of Ukrainian children. This time, very likely a meeting between the First Ladies of Ukraine and the United States on this matter will happen, confirms President Zelensky. Approximately $300 billion of the central bank of the Russian Federation's assets have been frozen in the western banks. It is believed that approximately 190 billion of them are located in Belgium at Euroclear Depository. There is no exact information on how Russian assets are frozen in each country. However, according to the president of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde, for example, only the United States, it is $5 billion. A group of United States senators, now from the Democratic both and Republican parties, recently presented a bill on the regular transfer of Russian assets frozen in the United States in favor of Ukraine. This was reported by the US Senate Committee on Foreign Relations on September 19th. On its website, senators propose transferring all frozen sovereign assets, that is $5 billion for now, of the Russian Federation that are currently under US jurisdiction to an interest-bearing account. The senators recommend that US President Donald Trump transfer the proceedings generated by these $5 billion, then, which is expected to be around $250 million to Ukraine, every 90 days. In addition, the US administration should continue diplomatic efforts to convince other countries to also begin redistributing all at least 5% of frozen Russian assets, and that's approximately $15 billion every 90 days, also in favor of Ukraine.
Given Russia's brutality against the Ukrainian people, it was only right that Russian government funds in the United States be seized and repurposed to help Ukraine rebuild its country under the REPO Act. Now, the REPO Implementation Act will encourage our allies to use the Russian assets in their countries to do the same and ensure that the assets under U.S. control are used pragmatically. Republican Senator Jim Risch.
In addition, senators have demanded that the United States administration submit a report on the volume of Russian assets outside the United States, which is around $295 billion net worth in total. Seems to be it. It was me, Henry Keane. Thank you for standing with Ukraine. Please subscribe so to stay tuned to things that are happening in the world, shown to you from Ukrainian perspective. Thank you. Goodbye.